What? Good morning, everybody. If you are joining us, you are joining Schmidt Ocean Institute and the research vessel Falkor. You are watching live video from the seafloor through ROV SuBastian. We are currently diving off the east coast of Australia on the Queensland Plateau. We are on the southwest corner of Willis Islet, and we are going to be doing quite a short dive today. The weather is going to be picking up shortly after noon. It's currently 8:30 a.m. local time here in Australia. So we just want to say hi. Thank you for joining us. Yesterday's dive was much longer, but today will be short, and we dropped in and are currently only at 250 meters. So as you can see, we're starting much shallower today. So thank you for joining us. My name is Deborah Smith. I'm one of the marine techs here on Falkor, and I have with me Dr. Robin Beeman, our chief scientist, and he is joining us from his home in Cairns. Hi, Rob, are you there?
Good morning, Debs, and good morning, everybody else listening in from around the world. As Debs mentioned, this is actually quite a different dive to the one yesterday, which was at Moore Reef. This dive 361 is on Willis Islets on the very western corner of it, and I'll talk a bit more about the island in a moment. But just the reasoning around this dive, the weather is going to be very marginal by the end of this dive around midday, and so we deliberately planned it so it would be a fairly shallow start and a shorter transit length. Yesterday's dive was around about 2 kilometres long horizontal distance. This one is probably only about 800 metres long, with the idea that the vessel can, the Falkor can pull the SuBastian out of the water by midday and then get into shelter before that bad weather hits. So we have some. We always start these ROV dives with real intentions in mind, and at the moment we're sitting down on the seafloor. I'm seeing lots of small ripples. These are typically known as bed forms. Due to currents. And for us, it's really no surprise we're seeing this, because we saw ripples on the seafloor at the base of Moore Reefs, and in the 3D mapping data that we've been collecting with the Falkor around the Willis Islets, Diane Bank, and Moore Reefs, this sort of a big cluster of reefs on the Queensland Plateau, we've seen these dune systems, quite large dune systems, around the periphery of these atolls. So clearly these large reefs are kind of sitting right in the midst of a fairly decent current flow that's sweeping out of the West Pacific Ocean, the Southwest West Pacific Ocean. But to give you a little bit more geography about what we're dealing with here, so Deb's mentioned I'm speaking from Cairns. Cairns is in northern Queensland in Australia, and this voyage is unusual in that no science team is on board because of the COVID crisis and very tight scheduling. We were not able to bring none of the science crew allowed on board, and so the ship had to sail with only ship's crew. They're doing a magnificent job, I might add, but the we have Dr. Merrick Eakins from the Queensland Museum in Brisbane. We have Dr. Jodie Webster from University of Sydney in Sydney, Dr. Brendan Brook from Geoscience Australia in Canberra, Danielle Cacciarelli, also from a choreoecologist from Townsville, and we have Kai Tie from University of Sydney in Sydney. He's our onboard ichthyologist. We hope to have some of these people join us on the audio today. Now, it looks like we're coming up to a bit of a rock wall, and this is very interesting for us. So the 3D mapping, or it could be just a factor of the light, the 3D mapping has revealed around the periphery of Willis Islets what appear to be very large blocks. Now, these could be coral blocks, pieces of the reef that have collapsed and have fallen down into the deeper waters around the edges of these large banks. Or they could be something completely different. The thing is, the 3D mapping that we're doing with the Falkor, this is the multi-beam mapping that's been conducted over the last 2 and a bit weeks, is very detailed. Like, we can see features on the seafloor easily to around about that 5 metre scale. So we can resolve features with our sonar at about 5 metre by 5 metre pixels, so about the size of, average bedroom. Speaking of which, here in Cairns, I'm transmitting this audio from a spare bedroom here in our home, and everyone's doing the best they can to contribute to this voyage. But at the moment, we're just transiting along over fairly flat seafloor with lots of little ripples. And this is helpful. This is an inset that Debs has just added here. Yeah, thanks, Debs. So just to give you perspective, so this is a Google Earth perspective. The pink-white area, this is what has been mapped with the Falkor's multi-beam. Actually, this is a better view. So you can see Cairns is right over on the very left side of the screen. That's where I am. And the ship has, over the last 2.5 weeks, has been mapping around all of these reefs. There's about 30 of them, and some of them are quite large. Now, if you can just zoom in on Willis Islets, or Willis Islets Dying Bank area, more reefs area, please, Debs. That's it. Okay, so this cluster we've been working in the last week. The Dying Bank is probably the largest of them. It's about 65 kilometres long, to give you a sense of scale. Willis Islets, where we are at the moment, you see a little triangle at the southwestern corner of Willis Islets. That's about 53 kilometres long. And it's about 24 kilometres wide. Yep, thanks. So the ship's sitting right on the southwestern corner. Yesterday's dive over more reefs, you can see these little dots way out on the west here, these 3 little dots. But anyway, around the edge of the Willis Islets, yeah, thanks, Debs. You just see those little reefs sitting by themselves. But as we get closer into the map data that the Falkor has collected over the last week or so, you could see how rough the seafloor is. Very complex. Typically a normal seafloor is very flat, but that's not the case here. We have lots of what appear to be blocks, and in particular, we're going over the north side of a very long linear block feature. Debs, can you give us a sense of how long that linear feature is?
It's about 1,400 meters.
Okay, so it's about 1.4 kilometres long. So this is a block, a linear style block. And if you just remove that profile, Debs, and we can look closer in why we've chosen this. If you take that block, think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. If you take that block and then drag it mentally, use your imagination, and take it up to the steeper flank, which is around the very rim of this area, thanks Steps, just there, you can almost imagine the whole thing has collapsed down. And this is what we think is what these blocks are created from. They're actually from undersea landslides. So the whole side of this reef has collapsed, and we are in fact going over the edge of it. But we want to confirm that with the ROV today. Now, if you have a look a little to the left, you'll see a more square rectangular block. Yeah, thanks, Ed. And again, if you sort of mentally draw a picture and then look at how that piece of the jigsaw may have fallen out of the reef, it's actually makes a lot of sense that these are, in fact, probably large limestone blocks that have collapsed off the edge of the reef. That's probably a couple of hundred, well, that'd be about 200 metres high, that flank there. And so a block, at least 200 metres in thickness, has probably fallen off the side and is now sitting at the base of it. So today's dive is really about trying to confirm what these blocks are made of. To say, okay, we have 3D mapping data that is very telling. It allows us to make these sort of mental connections between one block to where they may have fallen from. But let's have the ROV go over it and confirm it.
Sorry, I was just confirming with the ROV team. They're on the first waypoint, which we're gonna start heading towards that linear feature now.
Yeah, thanks, Tibbs. So already we're starting to see hints of this, it's what looks like coral rubble, limestone rock, embedded in a sandy seafloor. Haven't seen a huge amount of marine life yet, although there's some fish there. What we might do is bring Kai into the picture. We'll see if we can get Kai to join us.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, can hear you loud and clear.
Good morning.
Excellent. Good to have you join us at last. Kai, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm Kai. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Sydney as a systematic ichthyologist. I work on the evolution and taxonomy of coral reef fishes, in particular wrasses from the family Labridae. A kind of component of my research involves describing and naming new species of fishes, mostly from the mesophotic reefs, And I've done this with collaborations from other scientists around the world, such as Louise from the California Academy of Sciences, Brian Green from the University of Hawaii. So it's a really good opportunity to come online, see you guys doing mesophotic dives today. We had a really good dive yesterday with a whole bunch of ichthyologists commenting on the live chat. It got really exciting towards the last 200 meters. So we're hoping we see something similar today here.
Yeah, no worries there, Kai. Yeah, thanks. Look, I could see that was happening, so it was excellent to watch that interaction there. Yeah, I agree. Yesterday's dive was really spectacular, and it had been chosen because of this. Even Parks Australia had found that it really stood out in terms of biodiversity of shallow water fish and coral life. And this dive is going to be quite different, though. I've mentioned it before about it's a shorter dive today because the weather conditions are deteriorating, and it's necessary. It's in a shallower part of the flanks. Like yesterday's dive, we're down around 1,000 meters, which I'm really enjoying seeing what's down in those deeper depths. Here we're actually almost right. We're right in the mesophotic zone. So if all the lights were turned off on the SuBastian, there'd probably be just sort of very, very faint twilight. So we're definitely in that zone. But of course, we're really on the lookout for marine life and seeing what's attached to these things. But going back to why we're here, this very big block feature on the seafloor. It's in front of us now. We're going up over the side of it. We'll go up to the crest, which is around about 200 meters in height, and then we'll come back down the other side, down around to about 250 meters, and then there's sort of this long, gentle upward rise on the flank itself of the reef. And so, we just need to keep our eyes open for whatever marine life we can see. Yeah, thanks, Debs. That's a great view. So we're just coming up at the side of this feature now. It's around 1.4 kilometers long. So what we think is this part of the reef, 1.4 kilometres, the fisheye view looking up has fallen off the edge. The whole part of this, at least probably 200 metres high, thickness block has collapsed, and we're now flying up the side of it. Now, have you seen any fish at all yet, Kai?
We saw a little purple fish just about when I started going online, but I don't think we had a good enough view to kind of get a name on it. If we kind of bump into an area with more reef complexity, we might see a little bit more diversity. At this depth, we're kind of in the lower middle mesophotic, so things to look out for would be things like Odontanthes, Grammatinotus, which we saw a couple of yesterday. I think Amanda from the Australian Museum confirmed a bunch of new records for Queensland as well, from the family Epigonidae, deep water cardinal fish. So we're hoping to see more of that today, potentially getting better screenshots and videos of them.
Yeah, that's great, Kai. Really pleased to see so many experts getting in there. We really appreciate that because some of us, I'm certainly no fish expert myself. My background's marine geology. Jody Webster, my other colleague, he's a marine geologist, as is Brendan Brook. We have Daniela Cacciarelli, who's a coral reef ecologist, mainly shallow water coral reef ecologist, but very extensive experience studying the shallow reef systems out in the Coral Sea. So it was great to have her on board. And who else we are? Merrick Eakins. He's a deep water sponge taxonomist. So his world is typically much, much deeper than this, but he really knows his sponges from all depths. It's curious as to see if we're going to see many sponges here. This looks like Antipatheria, black coral in front of us. So principal investigator on the next voyage that we're doing with Falkor is Jeremy Horowitz, who I've spent a fair bit of time at sea with, and he's really interested in these black corals. So from the depths, from real deep, thousands of meters deep, right up into the shallows. So I wonder if he can join us at some point. But in that expedition that's coming up, we'll have permits to do sampling, and we'll actually do physical sampling of marine life, including black corals, and he's doing molecular analysis of them. So Debs, who are our ROV pilots today, just so we can introduce them?
Yeah, currently right now Chris is flying the vehicle and Ben is flying the camera.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, guys. Chris and Ben, and Russell is the other ROV pilot, so they do a fantastic job. Steering this very large machine. It's about 3.5 tonne. It's the size of a large vehicle. They're able to fly it with precision over the seafloor. It's really remarkable. And Debs, have we got the laser beams on, just to give a sense of scale?
We will get those turned on.
So Kai, talking about yesterday's dive, we got all excited. What was the most exciting fish for you?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just reading the live chat that's going on YouTube at the moment. But it's good that we're getting a lot of interaction from people from all over the world. Everybody seems to be enjoying this live stream very well. It got really interesting yesterday at around the 400-meter mark as we were going up. So when you hit that kind of 200 to 300 meter transition, that's when you get like a huge burst of biodiversity. We saw a bunch of things that had never been previously filmed before. I think we got a quick glimpse of Odontanthias wassi, which is a deep water anthiodine serenid. Very beautiful. We're hoping to see some more of that today. We saw a bunch of new, potentially new Grammatonota species as well that we're hoping to get better screen grabs of. And just, I guess it was more interesting in the sense that we just got a lot of fishes, especially towards the end of the dive, a bunch of Genicanthus angels, and a bunch of other anthias. It's always nice to see kind of the shallow water photic zone species mingling with some of the mesophotic endemics in that kind of transition zone, characterized by kind of more heavy coral and sponge growth and even photosynthetic algae. I think Richard was looking for Helimeta yesterday, but we didn't see any. Yeah, so just really good fish biodiversity overall that we're hoping to see more of today.
Yeah, Kai, I mean, I was really stunned at just how much fish there were, more than any of their dives we've done previously. They've all been quite interesting little, interesting dives for the fish that are popping into view. Some of those strange, coffin fish, or those very spiky, you call them batfish. I mean, they were that large batfish for me was a real standout. I thought it was a rock. It had the same coloration. You remember the coral boulders that was sort of sitting around it. It wasn't until it moved and it was like, oh my God, that's a fish. That was remarkable. Can you tell us a bit about that fish?
Yeah, so I completely forgot about that batfish. Now that you've mentioned it, it's a very good find. So there's another family of fishes commonly known as batfishes, and they're from kind of more shallow water areas from the genus Platax. But the batfish that we saw yesterday is a completely different thing. It has very heavily modified pectoral and pelvic fins that kind of resemble feet almost, which it uses to kind of waddle around the seafloor. Not a very active fish, you can imagine. And yeah, it's something that we don't see very often because just from the kind of habitats that it lives in. A very good find. I think we managed to get some really good screenshots for that fish as well, so that we can have a go trying to identify it. I think Ben Frabel got a putative idea of it yesterday. I'll have to look at the chat again to kind of confirm that. And then a couple of minutes after, we saw another really interesting fish from the genus Tonex. I think they call it a coffin fish. Kind of similar in shape. They've convergently evolved this modified pectoral and pelvic fins, which they use to kind of waddle around the floor. Again, something to look out for today, if we're lucky.
Hey guys, I'm just going to jump in real quick. I have a question from a 3-year-old on Facebook who would like to know what the water temperature is. It's 20.6 degrees Celsius, so much warmer than, if you remember yesterday's dive, we started at about 900 meters and it was 4.3 degrees Celsius. So we're looking at 20.7 right now.
Yeah, thanks, Debs. Yeah, water temperature really matters here, of course. It's tropical. It's all shallow water coral. As you get further up, it'd be quite comfortable swimming in this environment. I do a lot of scuba diving out off Cairns. In fact, I took my 12-year-old son scuba diving for the first time over Christmas. So, this is what you can do here in North Queensland. And we're lucky to have Daniela Cacciarelli, who is speaking with us yesterday. She's a reef ecologist. In fact, she has done most of the shallow water surveys in the Coral Sea, including the one out at Moore Reef that we visited. And she was struck by, I'll just stop there. There's a fish coming into view.
I have no idea what this fish is.
I would never have thought you'd say that. Okay.
I'm just having a better look at it because there's a bit of a delay from the Zoom feed and the one that I'm watching on YouTube.
Yeah, okay, so some advice. It might be better to drop the YouTube, but you can pop out the chat.
I have them on different screens, sorry.
Yeah, it's just that you are going to chew up bandwidth doing it that way. We are just very, very slightly ahead on Zoom.
Yeah. If anybody on the live chat has any idea of what this fish might be, just feel free to pop in. Louise suggested a sparrowhead, which I'm kind of agreeing, but I'm not sure on the genus.
Yes, so for people at home, I'm speaking from Cairns and Kai's in Sydney. Kai, might be best just to drop your YouTube feed itself and just pop out the chat. That way you can keep a watch on both, but you're not conflicting the two views.
Got it. It's much better now.
Well, we'll see a little bit of soft coral, and we've seen some Adapatheria black corals as well. So it looks like we're coming up to the top, close to the top of this feature. It was only ever going to be about 50 metres high, just from our mapping. It looks like it's flattening out now, and we're getting a bit more structure on the top. So these are sea whips, a soft coral. They can be quite long, over a metre long in places. I remember a diver went on with my son at Christmas time off Cairns, and it was like swimming over a forest of these seaweeds. It was just beautiful. You could float a couple of metres off the seafloor, and they're just waving in the breeze. We've got a very large clump of soft corals in front of us, so it looks like we're definitely on top of this feature.
We're getting some suggestions on the live chat that fish could be a sparid from the genus Acanthopagris, which I'm just putting down as a tentative ID for now.
Kai, people are mentioning that they're getting a bit of echo. I can hear it as well. If you're not speaking, just mute it and let's see if that goes away. Tips, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rob. I just stopped the screen. I was trying to refresh it.
All right. Kai, are you there?
It looks like
I am. We're looking at a grouper here from the genus Epinephrus, I think.
It's got lovely coloration on it.
If you look at the back of the screen, you'll see a bunch of small white fishes. I think they're from the genus Chromis, and I think they might be undescribed. So Tiffany Schiff from JCU has previously gotten some really good underwater footage of an undescribed species of damselfish from the genus Chromis, and that's kind of what it's reminding me of. If you can have a better look at that depth.
yeah, they're kind of scattering because the vehicle is coming, so we're doing the best we can to sort of look for fish and zoom in on them, but they have a tendency to swim away from us. They don't really like this very large, bright yellow thing swimming at them.
Yeah, no worries. I'm sorry if you're getting any echo feedback. I think it's just my room. It's very echoey.
Yeah, it sounds okay to me, Kaya. I think maybe just the loop to home and one of our challenges with telepresencing. So it's all good. I'm hearing you loud and clear. So
Yeah, me too, Kai. You sound fine. Oh, there's a nice view.
yeah.
We're getting some good complexity here in terms of reef structure, so we're hoping to see a bit more fishes. That was an Epinephrus, I think maybe Morwa. I'll have to double check. There are kind of a bunch of similar looking species. So Joe and Louise, if you're watching from home, I hope that you can see the little chromis that we're getting glimpses of. There's one at the back there on the screen.
So Debs, can you just confirm we're on the top of this long 1.4 kilometre feature now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are actually. We're having some. We're going to hang out here for a minute. We are just the vehicle's getting quite hot being up here, so we might have to dip back down to where we sort of started and maybe go around it. But yes, we are on the top of that linear feature.
There's a nice view of those fish you mentioned earlier. There's quite a few of them there.
Yeah, we're getting a really good view of this. So this is an undescribed species of damselfish from the genus Chromis. This is the first time I've actually had a good look at this species, and it's exactly the one that's been captured in Tiffany's video. Tiffany at the time was a PhD candidate at the James Cook University, and she was doing some deepwater bruv videos, and she got a kind of really good footage of fishes coming to her dive setup. One of them was this little damselfish that I've been really curious about ever since I first saw it, and we're getting a really good look at it here.
And because I'm interested in corals, these might be little stilasteric corals, like a fringe that are just attached to some of these rock boulders. They're quite white, they're very delicate looking. We saw some very large stilasteric hydrocorals yesterday, but in this mesophotic zone, they're quite common, often found in ledges or in little caves, so it's not surprising to see them here. The other thing to note, in around about right in the dead centre of the screen, you'll actually see the laser beams. The two laser beams are 10 centimetres apart, so that gives you a sense of scale.
Yeah, fish again that's way in the middle of the screen here, which could be a sparid or maybe a lathrinid. But sparid's more likely option. He might try to eat that little chromis. I'm hoping he doesn't. Oh, did you get a glimpse of that butterfly fish by any chance? I did have a good look at it, but I think it's a roa. On a prognathodes, maybe? No, that's a roa. I don't know if we have any records of roa occurring in Australia. We do, sorry, roa australis. So this might be it. Again, another mesophotic specialist that we don't see very often. Yeah, I can indeed confirm this is roa australis. And another Odontanthus here, resting against the rock.
It's great to have all these expert fish people writing in on the chat, so we really appreciate your help here, and because this really helps us as we move through this very large coral sea marine park with the more eyes looking at the vision, the better. Looks like some fish coming up on the top left there, Kai.
Those are the same chromas that we've been seeing. It'd be really good to get a great screenshot or video. This fish that we have in the middle of the screen here with that little horn sticking out, that's a monocanthid, a kind of file fish. They're very closely related to triggerfishes, and they use that little spike dorsal fin on their head to lock themselves in little tight crevices when they sleep at night in rocks and holes.
Is it usual to see them?
Sorry.
I was going to say, is it usual to see them upright while they're swimming, though, Kai? It just seems, I would have thought it'd be flattened back against their body.
Yes, so that modified first dorsal fin is reversible, and they flush it down the back normally when they're swimming, but they raise it when they are excited, or in this case, maybe startled and scared. We're joined on the chat here with Dr. Anthony Gill from the University of Sydney and Australian Museum. Tony is my supervisor for my PhD, and he's really good with fishes as well, which I'm hoping that he'll be contributing to this chat with.
Excellent. Welcome aboard, Anthony, and looks like there's a fairly good fish action happening already this morning.
This whitefish that we're seeing here, again, from the genus Chromis. Chromis is a really interesting genus of damsel because it's one of the largest, and it occurs in shallow water reefs all the way down to mesophotic depths. There's a big disparity in terms of habitat niche and ecology in a single genus. And the deep water species are kind of characterized by these deeper bodied, kind of whitish looking species, and they're really pretty. There's just one hiding under the rock there.
We just had a close-up of the sediment. It's always interesting to me as a marine geologist. Some of those flakes were halometas, the green algae. We spent a lot of time looking for this stuff on the Great Barrier Reef. I haven't seen any live halometa at the moment. The green algae look like fronds of little cornflakes all joined together. And when they die, they break up and create these little limestone flakes about the size of your fingernail. Probably a big part of the sediment here, but that close-up really just confirmed that halometa obviously exists in this place.
There's a shark.
Nice shark coming into view here.
Yeah, I just wonder if we've got Richard Fitzpatrick watching. Richard's another principal investigator on this voyage. He's a shark expert in the Coral Sea has a very large shark tagging program, mainly up at Osprey Reef north of us, which we visited early in the voyage. I'm seeing those really distinct eye shiner reflectance coming back. It's quite obvious.
I'm not very good with shark ID, so I'm just going to leave this for Richard, and for anyone who's watching on the chat now who might have any suggestions.
Well, I like that it's hanging around us. I just saw the two laser beams go over it. It's probably around, I'd say, 60 centimetres, maybe just under a metre long.
I just got some updates from people watching in that they might have seen a dolly bat from the genus Pseudochromis. That's a group of fishes that my supervisor works a lot with, and it's nice to see Pseudochromis occurring even down here at 200 meters.
Okay, this is we're coming over the other side of this big rock feature. It's about 1.4 kilometres long. It rises 50 metres and looks like we're dropping over the edge of it. So there's a nice sheer vertical wall directly underneath the ROV now. You can imagine that may have once connected up to the shallow reef flank that's higher up on the wall, and this is all collapsed. Now, what causes such a large block to collapse is a really open question. We know that cyclones come through and they can dislodge some fairly large boulders, but this is something on a different scale. The whole thing would be perhaps 200 metres thick, and we know that it's over 1.4 kilometres long. So the question is, what would cause such a thing to collapse off the edge of the reef? And we've done a little bit of work on submarine landslides, underwater landslides on the Great Barrier Reef, looking at things like sediment cohesion and things like that, just trying to understand what weaknesses are allowed. There's a nice shark coming through that would trigger an underwater landslide. The only thing we could come up with was possible earthquake. Debs, there's a bit more marine snow about. Is that just perhaps from the ROV, or is this a natural just sediment and water column?
Yeah, Rob, that's from us actually. There's quite a bit of current, and the vehicle's getting kind of tossed about a little bit with that, and just the short distance we have between us and the ship. So as you can see, it's a very different sort of environment for the vehicle to be in. So it's quite warm, and it's quite there's quite a large surface current, which is contrary to the surface wind right now, and so it's just all these factors. But yeah, it's the vehicle moving about. But there is quite, you can see there's snow going by quite fast. And Chris is saying, plus we followed the shark earlier, disturbed the sediment a bit, and then circled back around to where we were. So we've sort of stirred up the bottom. And you can see we're sort of starting to come off the end of this feature.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that current's quite a big issue, but it also influences the marine life around us. You can see the sea whips and all the other soft corals all lean in one direction, so it's quite obvious that we're in a place with high current. Yeah, thanks, Deb. So we've got this 3D perspective now. We've gone up. We started down at 250 metres. It was all that those ripples in the sand. We've come up the wall. It was quite steep. It was around about 50-metre rise. We've run over the top where all that soft coral was and the fish that Kai was describing. And we're now dropping down probably around about 250 metres again onto the other side. Not quite sure what's there. My guess is it's probably going to be a bit more sand, but then it's a fairly long transit across that moat feature, and then we start the climb up the wall. Now, we hope the wall will reveal some more mesophotic corals and structure that attract fish. That's what we have in front of us now.
So Rob, our plan here of attack, the pilots were just sort of setting up to get sort of over this feature, but we're facing the face that we originally went up, and we're just going to sort of work our way around the front of the feature, sort of looking at it and facing it, and then once we get to the other side, we'll sort of back our way down and then work our way back up. So obviously, you're always trying to keep the vehicle and the ship and the tether and everything all in a line, as well as deal with currents, and so we're just sort of attacking this feature in a different perspective.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Okay, so we're looking at this. We're looking at the vertical wall of it, and it's quite pitted. It looks very different to what was on top. But you remember, if this happened a long time ago, the top would be more stable. The sediment there and rock boulders have allowed create a bit more structure. Here is vertical. There are smaller soft corals and the like. It seems quite bare compared to the top part of this long rock.
So for the viewers at home, I've just put up the overlay with the ROV pilot's heads-up display. So this is the map that they're looking at, and you can see the orientation of the ship, which is pointing south right now, bow to the south. And then the vehicle just off its stern, and the green dotted line is our original proposed track. And you can see the vehicle as it's sort of right now is flying around the north end of this feature, keeping the front of the vehicle facing the object. And then just shout out to my dad. I want to say hi and thank you for the text message that you were eating lobsters, Dad. Lobster. Thanks for that. Jealous.
Yeah, just on that, so this whole expedition has been organised through this whole COVID crisis. It's been quite a challenge for everyone. For viewers watching, that the crew of the Falkor have been on there for quite a few months now, and they've hardly had much rest. They've had a few port calls and cans just to reprovision, but then have gone straight back out again to sea. So they've been working very hard. They've done a magnificent job of mapping and doing ROV dives. But the Falkor, the researchers of Falkor was out here as part of a year-long series of expeditions that started in January and working its way around southern Australia. So they were the first expedition was to the Bremer Canyon on the southwest Western Australian coast, and then into the Perth Canyon, again over West Australia, and then up onto the sort of northwestern side of Australia, the Ningaloo Canyons, and that was the last fully crewed with science crew expedition, and then the COVID crisis kicked in, and then everything changed. And they ended up having to come over to northeast Australia. So for viewers at home, this is going to be a shortened dive. The weather is deteriorating. I'm in Cairns. I'm 400 kilometres west of the Falkor, and we're getting quite nasty weather here. Nasty in the sense that it's the coldest May day on record, and it's raining, and the wind is picking up. So what we're going to do, we're just going to change the plan. I think what we'd like to do, Kai, you probably agree with me, if we can bring the ROV back up on top of this big feature, and we'll run as best we can along the top. There's plenty of structure. There's obviously fish life there. We'll avoid going down into the deeper part and up the flank again. Does that sound all right with you, Debs?
Yeah, we're just sort of repositioning everything. We're going to come back up on top of this feature and have another look around, and then we'll just have to pull out when we get the word. So we'll come back up to that sort of more biodiverse area and have another look around, and then we will wait for the word that we need to pull.
Yeah, I understand. Look, I think that's the best decision. And if we can float or just sort of drift along the top, there should be enough fish for people to see an ID. And there's quite a bit of structure up there compared to these sidewalls.
Yeah, and just to answer, Lisa, your question, I agree with Jimbo, who's typing messages from the other side of the room. It depends on the person. So Lisa's question was, if there's an adjustment to getting your sea legs when you're on a ship, does it similar happen when you come back on land? Every person's different. I've worked with people who can get quite land sick after being at sea for quite a while, and others who it doesn't affect. I don't seem to have too much of an effect, other than maybe a little wobble in the shower. It's always a slight effect when you've spent some time at sea. So yeah, we're racking up the days out here. There are some crew who have been on before Christmas. I joined in January, and we're hoping that at some point we will have an opportunity to be able to get back home.
Yeah, thanks, Debs. We're really mindful of that. Being that we're on shore, listening to you and knowing that you've been at sea for quite a long time. I myself go out to sea, maybe once a year, perhaps 4 weeks at the most a year. So, but I've got the luxury of watching it and being involved with it from my spare bedroom here in Cairns. and so is the other principal investigators around Australia. But look, we really appreciate what you're doing. It's a magnificent job.
This is what we call a control room takeover, when we like to look at pretty things here as well, and so we're zooming in on this. Ben, can you actually, when you're done with looking at this red one, can you go back to the right and looked like there was a coral growing on a dead coral I was curious about. Just to the right. No. See the pink growing on the long. The crinoid at the end. Yep.
Yeah, it's a soft coral garden, isn't it? It's very pretty.
Some good coral IDs from people watching in on the chat. I think that orange one is the scleronephia, and there's also a melophaea there somewhere. I think it's the red one maybe.
This great sea wet garden here. Some fish over there for you, Kai.
Those look like trevallies. They're just kind of at the back of the screen. No, it's not. Some kind of carangid though. I can't really don't have a good look of it.
I've just put up the rear camera for those of you who saw that fish do a quick drive-by. Sometimes we actually see things sort of creep up behind us, so I thought maybe if you wanted to watch for a little bit, that's what it looks like behind us. You can see the way the direction of the sediment and the thrusters push most of that out behind us, which helps keeps our view in our science camera forward clear.
I think that fish might be an amberjack from the genus Seriola. I just saw a comment on the live chat from Brian Green. Seriola, amberjack.
Kai, Debs, I have to step out to do some family things, so I'll leave it with you. You're doing great. great. So just keep that going, and really appreciate your help here. I'll try and join before the end of the dive, but it looks like it's going to be shortened anyway.
Okay, Rob, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's just me and you now, Debs?
Yep. Yep. So Chris just goes, so
how's it going where
dude,
you
right?
are?
Yeah, we're good. So we're going to try to look for some fish. But yeah, and there is quite a bit of discussion going on YouTube about the coral and soft coral and the lack of some of the identification here. I think, Jeremy, you're on both usually YouTube and Facebook. We've been trying to get some zoom-ins of the coral bases and various types, but fish are tricky. They're hard to catch. I just asked Dr. Glenn Moore, who we had out with us on the previous expedition. They got quite adept at catching fish in nets that they brought with them, so it was quite a tally. The ROV pilots were getting who could catch as many fish. Chris is saying they definitely won.
Yeah, I have multiple computers on at the moment with different screens showing, the Facebook feed and the YouTube feed, and we're getting a lot of very good coral identification here from some of our viewers, in particular from Joe Rowlett, I think, R. And the tricky bit is because there's a disconnect in the feed that we're getting from the Zoom camera and the ones that they're watching at home. It's hard to kind of pinpoint where, at what point in time they're looking at the corals and identifying them as they go. But some really good names being tossed out there in the chat.
Yeah, I'm sure some of this work will have to be done, with the video annotation and identification post cruise. One of the challenges of not having a science team out here is, all of that time, usually with a science team sitting in the control room, being able to do some initial identification ends up either happening in their home on YouTube or having to be done completely after the cruise. So there's definitely a bit of a delay in processing all of that. But it's been great to have all these experts with us on YouTube and Facebook, and so that's one of the reasons why I know there were some comments yesterday about how we have a time overlay. This really is one of our archival features at Schmidt Ocean Institute, is having this live YouTube stream and of the dive entirety, and being able to have it up there is another source of data. Schmidt Ocean Institute shares all of the data that Falkor collects with its instruments publicly and is available for everyone, and so that includes the ROV video as we post it to YouTube.
There's also a really interesting and different kind of landscape that we're seeing from yesterday's dive. So today's habitat is kind of characterized by the soft sediment, a lot of spiral cirripedes coral, low-lying rubble, not much complexity going on here, which could explain the lack of fishes.
Yeah, they seem to be more prevalent when we were in an area with a bit more of a scraggly rock area. I think this is a bit more open and sandy for them, which also probably describes the great difference between yesterday's dive and today. We saw a lot more geological structures and rock forms where this seems to be covered in a sediment.
Are you at any liberty to share about the lifestyle that's going on the ship that you're in, Debs? Because I'm pretty curious. I'm interested to know what the day-to-day, schedule is like for someone that's on board the cruise.
Yeah, yeah. So the guys are telling me, 120 days. We just described that. Yeah, there's a varied range of number of days we've been at sea and who's been able to go to shore. I've been doing the provisioning when we came in, so I actually have stood on land, for an hour or two while loading boxes full of vegetables and fruit and meat and M&Ms and all those various things. But yeah, the day-to-day life for us when we're at sea is fairly routine. We get into watch schedules. So our deck teams and engine teams and marine tech teams all work on a watch schedule. And so they each take, the bridge team works a 4-hour on, 8-hour off, 4-hour on, 8-hour off, and the engine team works an 8-hour straight, 16 off. And so once everybody gets into that scheduled routine of whatever their watch may be, you kind of, just sort of plod on with the day-to-day work. So as long as the weather is nice, which we've been unfortunate to not have too much great weather in the last few weeks, people get kind of cranky when the weather kicks up and the boat moves quite irrationally. But yeah, otherwise it's a fairly good routine, and like most places, things revolve around food. So you have 3 meals a day, hopefully, unless you're on a watch where you're working mostly nights, and then you may have 1 or 2 meals and scrounge around and make a cheese toasty or something, or some noodles. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty the same for us. A lot less people in the galley right now. We don't have 20 some odd scientists roaming around, so it actually is a pretty much quiet ghost ship when it comes to meals and other times of the day. But yeah, so the day-to-day routine doesn't change much whether we have a science team with us or without us. Everybody works the same type of watch schedules.
It's very interesting to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course, yeah, I'm sure it's different for different ships, but we've adapted quite a bit to mapping here. We do quite a bit of mapping on Falkor as well as ROV diving, so the ROV team's been doing some amazing maintenance. They have a yearly maintenance on SuBastian, and so when in between our ROV dives, they've been touching up and fixing up and just doing some general overhaul maintenance on the vehicle, and then quickly putting it all back together when we decide to dive. So it's been really good opportunity for them to get some long overdue maintenance done.
I'm wondering if we can get Daniela or maybe another of the investigators we have online to come join us, even just for the last kind of 30 minutes of the dive, because we're seeing quite a bunch of coral diversity here that I'm hoping someone could give a much better input than I can, because it's not really my area here.
Yeah, absolutely. We just reached out to them, and we'll see if somebody's available. What kind of fish is this, Kai? Is this another triggerfish?
Yeah, so we're having another look here at a monocanthid, another filefish. And he's doing something that's very typical of this family. When they're startled or scared, they kind of go into a little nook or a cranny, and they evert their dorsal fin trigger and just kind of wedge themselves in place. Very handsome fish.
Why are they called triggerfish? Where did that come from?
This is a filefish, but they're very closely related to triggerfish. I think it's from that reversible first dorsal fin spine. I guess it's kind of like a trigger. If anybody knows this, please feel free to comment on the chat.
I think it looks more like a unicorn, Ben.
It does. It looks very. It looks like a unicorn. I agree.
Ben wants to know if you've ever eaten one.
Actually, filefishes are really tasty. Leather jackets are a kind of filefish, and they're pretty good to eat.
Ben agrees. So for those of you just joining us or who've been with us, this is Schmidt Ocean Institute research vessel Falkor and ROV SuBastian. We are just running along the top of a geological feature here that has at some point in the past fallen off the side of a reef. We are on the southwest side of Willis Islet, and looks like we're just getting some more fish into view here, Kai. They're all running for cover, but we are about half an hour, 45 minutes from the end of this dive. We've got weather that's increasing quite rapidly on us, and so we'll end up having to pull the vehicle out. It's a pretty white and orange fish.
Wow. Dad, yeah, can you please zoom in on that?
The guys are trying to settle down to do just that, but he's gone hide about, so we'll see if we can see if he'll come out.
That is definitely a new species of something. It's a serenid.
Yeah, you'll have to send me the clip time for that, Kai, and I'll get you the video. It went by quick, but we did see a little bit of it before it went into the rock.
Yeah, some kind of Anthiadine, Pseudanthius, I think. Very, very beautiful fish.
Yeah, he doesn't want to come out and play today, guys.
It's reminding me of something from Japan that we call Pseudanthius elongatus. I think it might be in the same species complex. Yeah, not getting a very good look here. I'll have to rewind the video when we finish the dive.
Yeah, of course. These fish go by very fast, so it's hard to catch everything on on real time.
There's definitely another Anthiadine genera there. I think it was either Odontanthus or Tosanoides. I have two screens on at the moment, so I'm trying to watch the replay on another screen and kind of comment live on the Zoom feed here.
Yeah, I completely understand. We have 27 screens here in front of us in the control room, so it can be quite challenging to keep an eye on all of them.
Right about here, we're getting some really good, well, I wouldn't say really good, but we're getting much better habitat structure with the little bommies and the little rocks. And we're seeing immediately a greater diversity of fishes as compared to the kind of more sandy sediment type habitat that we were patrolling and cruising by previously. Yeah, so for those that are tuning in right now, that white fish that we've been seeing all throughout the dive is a new species of damselfish from the genus Chromis. I recently described a new species of damselfish from this genus from southern Japan, and I think that this might be closely related to that one. Deepwater chromis tend to have 14 dorsal fin spines. And angelfish, Centropyge rbi. Can we have a good look at that, please?
Yeah, I think he's already gone. Maybe up ahead.
Yeah, that's a really rare deepwater angelfish that's actually quite poorly known. We don't really know its phylogenetic position. In the grand scheme of angelfish systematics, it's quite a mysterious one, and known from very few specimens as well. But yeah, everybody on the chat screening at the fish now. Centropyge rbi.
Okay, everybody, I've just gotten a call from the bridge, and we are going to need to recover the ROV. We thank everybody for joining us today. We had a short dive, and we were able to take a quick look around in this area, but unfortunately the weather is kicking up quite rapidly, and so we are going to bring the ROV back on deck. So I want to thank you, Kai, for joining us.
Just as a quick note before we leave, there's a group of Tossinoides here. For the first time we're seeing this. I think it's Tossinoides bennetii, which has just only been described last year. I think these are females, so I don't see the male. But good to see this dive ending off with a really good note here. And thank you, Deb, for having me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for joining. And thanks everybody at home for joining us. This is Schmidt Ocean Institute, research vessel Falkor, and ROV SuBastian. And we'll try to give you guys a heads up the next time we're diving. We're actually moving on to the next set of reefs after a bit of weather this evening. So we'll start mapping in the Coringa Islet area and the reefs to that. Past that. So whenever we get a weather window, we'll try to do as much ROV diving as we can. But for now, we are going to go do some mapping for a couple of days and hopefully have another weather window next week. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Debs. Thanks everyone on the ROV crew and the Falkor team for allowing us this short dive today. It's been really interesting, and thank you too, Kai. You did an excellent job. We'll definitely have you talking in the future when we have more ROV dives. So we'll see you next time. Okay, this is Robin Beeman leaving from Cairns. Out.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Kai.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.